for the tour. Thanks for sitting down with me, dude. Did you ever think when we first met that this would be where we'd be shooting, what we'd be doing right now?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a visionary, so I feel like I've always see the next step, but it's cool to see it in fruition right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've always, especially seeing kind of Brandtegic the way Brandtegic was, like I always kind of say like, oh, I see myself having my own studio. I see myself, being able to be in a spot where even like now, like helping other agencies through my testimony and all that stuff. So I always saw it in my mind, but it doesn't take away from the moment at all, though.
Yeah.
It always feels surreal.
I know we talked a lot on the tour, but what I want to hear from you is maybe like start us off. And I know we talked a little bit about this on the tour, but I want to dive a little bit deeper. Like, what do you feel like was that aha moment that allowed you to go from what you were telling us, like working in your garage, doing everything for the clients that they wanted you to do, random shoots, all that sort of stuff, to being able to hire a team of 11 people and have a 2,500 plus square foot studio where people are coming in, which is your dream studio, it sounds like. Like, what was that moment for you that was like, okay, this is what caused this, or this is what I think that was the biggest contributor to actually getting there?
I would say, man, it was the progression of events of first having the issue, how we talked about when I was in the Marine Corps. I had that problem where I was again a glorified freelancer. I had a good amount of clients, was making a good amount of money, but then it was until last 2 months of my career in the military, they made me work about like 16-hour days, and I had no time for my clients. So then that situation was almost to me like almost like a foreshadow of like, this is what's going to happen if I don't like actually duplicate myself, build a team. And so that out of that fear or that moment was what set off, okay, now I need to find somebody who has what I want and is doing pretty much like the way that I want to do it and have that like that fruit. Because like even when we first met, I vocalized like there's a lot of people I was getting like ads for, like, oh, like we'll build your agency for you, we'll do this, we'll give you 20 clients in the next 20 days, all this stuff, and there's so much of that it's kind of hard to filter like who's legit. And I feel like I was on the border of like I was about to pay for one of these guys because that's kind of, I was already in the mindset of finding somebody, and then thank God I ran into you and I actually got to meet you and we met and we got to really like dive into what is it that you've done. And that to me was like, man, for the first time, I saw somebody who had what I wanted specifically in the space that I'm in. Because I've had mentors in my life who have success, they have the house, they have, the marriage, and that's great. And they have what I want on those, like on that end, but not from like the creative business standpoint. They didn't have the team, the studio space. And it was so cool to see that you had that. And I'm like, man, this is exactly what I want to do. So that's why I leaned in more and really ran with Agency U, because I was like, man, this guy knows what's up. He has the fruit. He's done the things. And that for me was what started it. And then everything, like, again, man, I was like, whatever you told me to do, I didn't even want to like get on a call with you until I did that thing that you told me to do. And I was like, cool. He told me to hire someone. He told me to get a bookkeeper. That's what I'm going to do, So that's really that I feel like that the initiative of doing that for sure is what got me.
Yeah. So it was like the Marine Corps story, which is basically you got called back into work and had to work 16-hour days. And as a result, you basically had no business anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you're like, oh crap, like I'm the bottleneck in everything in the business. And because I'm not actually in the business, there's nothing to be had. And you're like, oh crap, I don't want this.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people struggle with that, where they're like, they're the creative, they're the best in their business, they're the videographer, the video editor, like the reason the clients hire them is because they want that person. Yeah. And that's like a really hard transition to make, to actually go from that. And it sounds like, I mean, it shows that you've been able to do that with your team, with your studio, with all that sort of stuff. What was that transition like for you, from being like glorified freelancer, bottleneck, doing everything yourself, needing to be involved in everything, to being able to step back and like be a true leader and like have a team and be able to work without necessarily like being in fulfillment and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, man, I think that it's always like it's always super surreal, because I know what it was like, man. Every time I talk to my team about when they're struggling to do like edit a video, I'm like, man, I was doing this and like 20 other things. And so it's always very surreal, but being able to have that flexibility, the freedom, the time freedom has been really nice, because one, like I've been able to really dial in on, the growth of the business. I feel like when you're so in it, it's hard to really project growth and really strategize growth, because like it's either you're working in the business or on the business. And when you're, again, so in the weeds, it's hard to like go and look at, okay, this is how many people I need to hire, how many sales calls I need to really like crush on, all these things that like help fuel the business. And being able to do that gives me the freedom to really like grow the business way more. Plus, you know, on the personal side, you know, I had my son about 2 years ago, and it's been just a, you know, blessing to be able to have the time with him that I want. Like if I want to spend time with him today, I could have been like, hey, I'm not doing anything today, and do that. And just to have that freedom, you know, to be able to take my family to Colombia for a whole month and just, you know, hang out and not worry about like if my business is going to go under by the time I come back. Like that's like, for me, man, like the money's cool. You know, the accolades are cool. But for me, man, it's the time freedom and the time that I get to spend with my family. That's probably the biggest thing.
So what would you say like were the stepping stones of getting you to the point where you now have more time freedom? Because that's what you value, it sounds like, is like getting the offer dialed in, systems, building the team. Like what were your like sequence of events to getting to where we are now?
The way it happened for me was pretty much, I was struggling with really like separating myself from the business, because I was doing everything and I was the main selling point. So I had to create a system and then an offer that wasn't necessarily me as a center
Your
point.
Creativity.
Exactly, yeah. So I did that. So that was the biggest first step, the system and then the offer. Then from there, then is finding people to then work the system and provide the deliverables for the offer. So then that was the next step. So then was hiring people, finding, recruiting, you know, vetting them out, and then plugging them into the system, the leadership aspect. And then now in the phase that we're in right now is really, okay, how can we add more fuel to the fire? Meaning then like start implementing certain things that will increase pipeline and sales to then hire and duplicate what we already have. Because what we have is really good. Now, if we duplicate it 2-3 times, that's kind of where we're at now. So that's the phase we're in.
Yeah. Talk to me about like offer stuff. Like where do you think that you made your biggest mistakes when it came to offer?
Oh man, I think first is just being so desperate that I would take anything and everything. You know, like I'd be like, yeah, sure. You know, like I'll shoot these videos, and then I'll also shoot your little daughter's birthday party.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, you know, like little things like that. Like, and it's just kind of like I was like, yeah, like I'll take anything and everything was a huge issue. And then I feel like it's a little obvious after time. You're like, probably shouldn't be doing that. And then from there, the second thing that was kind of hard for me to break off was I was so eager to work with people that I would always customize packages. So I'm like, okay, I'll do this for you.
They came to you thinking that they want this, and you're like, oh yeah, just take orders pretty much.
Exactly, right. So then they were saying, hey, like I would have my offer, but I wasn't necessarily stern in my offer. And then they would say, oh, well, I want this, this, and this. And then I had to just wanting the business. I was like, sure, I guess we'll do that too. And then it just, one, you can't productize. It's hard to scale on that because you can't really predict that. Two, you know, it doesn't work out because it's usually what the client thinks that they want, never really works out, which is something that I had to then build in, like, you know, I am the subject matter expert in this, and I had to like build that confidence in myself to do that.
Being less of the order taker, more of an outcome driver,
exactly,
and like getting clients business and helping them.
And then understanding
ROI.
what is their bigger vision.
Yeah.
And then how can we reverse engineer that versus, again, sometimes they think that they want the cool promo. They
Totally.
want but in reality, they need more of something else.
Yeah, being more of an authority.
Exactly, yeah. That was a big aspect. Those were probably the two biggest mistakes that I made. Because then
you and everyone else.
Yeah. And then because eventually what happens is you get ran over. People, it's some, again, you become an order taker, and also like makes you like everybody else. All these other agencies are very similar to that, or freelancers. So then you're just like everyone else. So
competing
then when
on price, race to the bottom.
So 100%. Then what happens is when they say, oh, I can find someone to do it cheaper. It's like, because they don't have to pay for all this overhead. So of course they can charge less, but then I'm not doing anything different from them. So I had to really align myself.
Position it better and like more outcome driven and ads. Like that's something that you've been learning a lot too with like the offer stuff, just because like you're really good at the creative, but like how do we fuel that even to just get our clients results, so they're not like, oh, this is the cheapest person. It's like, cool, go to them. They're not going to give you results.
Exactly. 100%.
What about like the system stuff? So tell me about the system stuff. What were your struggles with systems, and then what specifically were you able to dial in? I mean, we saw a little bit of this stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, the first thing was I had no idea like what I was doing, to be honest. Like
I think as a creative, I mean, not to interrupt you, but I did interrupt you. But I mean, when I started my business as a creative, it was like I thought the business was like in our brain and like our creativity and our going out and shooting. It's like I had no idea like I didn't even know what project management was.
Yeah, no, like
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think it's something creatives intrinsic like
Yeah.
really, even one have the desire to do, or two even really know how to do. And it was very it was so foreign. I didn't know I didn't even know where to start. I knew I
Yeah.
had to do something because by nature I'm a little bit more organized. And that's why, hence, I used the whiteboard because that's all I knew. I was like, oh, I plan stuff on a whiteboard, so I might as well track everything on a whiteboard. But then I didn't know there were systems. I didn't even know there was Notion out there. I didn't know any of that stuff. And when I finally found out about it, even then, it's like, man, like, where do I even start? I know I got to build SOPs. I know I got to do a CRM. I know I got but where do I start? That was like super overwhelming, man. And it was definitely like a huge blessing. And just like for me, one of the biggest in the beginning too was just you having a copy paste formula where, hey, just copy this template. And then I was from there able to then customize it to what I need. Versus like if I had to build that from scratch, I think it would have taken me way longer, cost me way more business, and we wouldn't have hit our goals as fast.
100%. And now your team can just work off the system.
Yep.
Versus like a whiteboard and trying to scale the unscalable.
100%. Yeah.
And now they're looped in. There's like a centralized hub of Optic, not just Santiago too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So offer systems and then team. So what were we struggling with, like team, and then where like what was helpful for that?
I think
because 10 people is a lot of people to manage. I think
I feel like with humans it's just like always going to be interesting. But I think the first off was I didn't even know how to hire. I didn't even know what to do. And then having you had a good framework of like what to look for, and even the onboarding process for hiring, that was super helpful. So from there, I'm a good recruiter, so I started recruiting people and then plugging them into that. But then even then, the issue was, okay, like how do they know what to do? And that's where the systems really came in. That's why it was that order that really helped me, was when, okay, now I just plug them into the system that I've already been building, I've already done, and then that was I feel like a lot smoother. From there, building a more in-depth onboarding system for our team members was something that you had us do, and that really helped. Because before I was doing like, I would have someone come in, do a meeting, and then I would do like maybe an hour of the meeting itself, plus maybe like 2 days of onboarding them, showing them Notion. Versus it's like we just built like a video platform. Funny enough, we're a video, like we do video, and then I didn't even have video platform for my own onboarding system. So we did like a Loom style where it's like, hey, this is how you Notion. So then now they come in, they're doing that, and it takes pretty much time away from me, so then I can still do what I need to do, and then I can hire people faster. Because then when there's more people, that was a bottleneck, because then my time was being expended. So then that, and then the last part was just like the leadership aspect, how to deal with people. I came from a background of the Marine Corps where I didn't really have great leadership, and it's a good example of what not to do, which is cool. But
which
then
is
also
very just like point the finger.
Exactly. And it's also very like, very disrespectful. Well, granted it's the Marine Corps, you could take it, but it's also like, you think about it this way. It's like, if you sign a contract where you can't leave. So it doesn't matter who's in charge of you. Like you have to show up the next day. You got to do what's being said. Versus like a business, it's a volunteer. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have to like work for you, and it's a different dynamic. Like that's why you can be a crappy leader in the Marine Corps and excel.
Get away with it.
Because there's no real incentive, right? Versus in a business, like the health of your business is determined by how you lead your team. And so I was like, how do I maneuver that? And then I remember just having difficulty with certain team members. I've only had to fire one person. But I remember you walking me through that. I was like, I don't like the Marine Corps side of me wanted to like, do some things that were inappropriate, and be like, super go off of my emotions. But I remember you guided me like, hey, like you're a professional. This is a business you're running, do what's right. And, re-grounded me in my own values, and then be able to approach that situation. And like a business owner rather than like a petty, former Marine Corps, whatever. Right. So then it's kind of like one of those things where that for sure has been really key. And then even then growing like, okay, how do I evolve this person to this, and communicating with them. And that's been really key. I think that's the hard part. I feel like not a lot of people talk about it.
Team is the hard, for sure. The team is 100% the hard thing. I mean, you hit on the onboarding. Like onboarding your team is just as important as onboarding your client. Because the moment they jump in and they're like, dude, this is super unprofessional, they're gonna have a weird taste in their mouth, and they're gonna like feel weird about working. And then you also mentioned like taking care of the team. It's like, yeah, your most important client is not the one that's paying your invoices. It's the one that you're paying invoices to, which is going to be your team, because they're the ones that's making you look good.
Yeah,
so.
That's something you told me, because I remember even like it was a couple of years ago, I was in that battle of like, man, like I want to, again, jumping in, saving the day. And like, and then also it was hurting the reputation with the team where if the client always sees me coming and saving the day, they're always going to want me there. And so I had to like, realize that, I was also prioritizing my clients over my team. And so I had to figure out, based off the conversation of like a shift of focus of like my focus is the team and the team's focus is the client. And that's how the dynamic should be, rather than me going over and being like, like putting the team aside and then, prioritizing the client. And so I think with that has created a really healthy dynamic, but then also doubled back where now the clients, like there's times where I don't ever talk to the clients, and that's, a good thing where they feel confident in what the team is doing. And then I'll get some good feedback from the clients of like, oh yeah, Destiny's awesome. Like, Zay's been great with shooting. And it's like, it's good to hear that stuff, cause it's like, okay, perfect. They're taking care of them. So that's kind of like a big factor. I think everybody wants the team, but there's a lot that comes with it. And I think
it's
that
not as sexy to market. That's why we don't see that a lot.
100%, man. 100%.
Cool, man. Well, for people watching this, like a lot of people probably are agencies. They just saw the studio tour. They're inspired by you, your story. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who is you, just starting off, or like you wanting to scale, or maybe they're at $10,000 to $20,000. Maybe they want a team.Maybe they want systems. Like, what would you suggest to them?
I would say pay for speed is the biggest thing. I always tell people, like I've done a lot of different masterminds. I've been mentors, different type of mentors in my life. By far, Agency U has been the best as far as experience, as far as value. But the thing is, at the end of the day, that I always, like the stuff that you teach, the stuff that everyone else teaches, in reality, we can find that on the internet. You can YouTube it. You can, it's
everything's
all,
on our YouTube channel, like literally.
Yeah,
everything
exactly, right. But what you're actually paying for is speed. I mentioned earlier that if you didn't give us that template, just that one template for Notion, me having to build that out would have taken me for sure maybe an extra year or so. And because I was able to pay for speed, that made me grow my business a lot faster. I think people struggle with making that investment, but it's really like paying for speed is a next level. And then on top of that, then you're also learning from other people's mistakes. Like there's some things that you've got to deal with that I didn't deal with, that thank God, because you had that kind of that roadmap for me. And then when I am close to dealing with those things, we talk about it, and then you help me do the right thing. And I avoid a whole nother issue, right? So you're not only paying for speed in the sense of getting systems in place that you don't have to necessarily put in the work to build your own, but also you're also paying for speed in the sense of like you get to move faster because you're not necessarily making as many mistakes. So that's the biggest thing.
I'm curious because like people watching probably are like, oh, like cool, Agency U is the best to Santiago, whatever. But like what specifically from like maybe other things? Like, because I feel like our product, like we do a lot with like the templates, giving away templates, a lot of one-to-ones, the Slack and stuff. Like what specifically for you was like, dang, this is like way different than anything I've ever been in?
I would say
just some like insight for people.
Yeah, maybe. No, for sure. I would say, I think the two biggest factors is the community and then the constant evolution. I think those are the two biggest things. And then I'll throw the third thing in there, which is I'd say accountability. Because again, like we said, like all the stuff that you guys teach it's on YouTube, and there's so much information out there that you can pretty much piece together everything, but it takes a lot more time. You have to filter through the ish. So then that's one thing. The second thing is the fact that then there's a community of people who are doing the same thing you're doing that you can tap into and say, hey, like I have a new client that's in this arena. Does anybody have any experience with that? And then get some insight on that. Or hey, I have a client in this state that's looking for this. Like, does anybody have a connection? That alone for sure is huge. And then I would say the accountability is really key for like, you guys are really good at dialing, hey, like what are the top three things?
We don't just throw you in the deep end and be like, here's some videos, you go watch them and then maybe report back.
Exactly. You're like, hey, what are the top three things you want to focus on this week that we can hold you accountable to? Like you guys are very on top of it. And then the last thing is the adaptability. I feel like I've been part of a lot of masterminds, courses where it's like a cookie cutter, like, 7 module thing. And it's like, you pay for it, you watch it, and then you do your thing. And those are all right, but I think you guys are always evolving it. Like there's always something changing. There's always, you guys are evolving with the times, because similar to our business and just business in general is that things are always going to change. So being able to adapt, I'll end on the story of our company grew really fast, really quick. And then we hit a plateau because we were originally a creative agency where we were just making really cool stuff. Like it looks super clean, looks better than most people. And And that was great. And I did really good in a thriving economy. But once things got really hard economically, we started to see some clients start to then back out and be like, hey, love your stuff, love your team, but I just can't afford this right now. I can't justify the cost. We're hearing a lot of that stuff. And then for us, we had, as a business owner, we had to pivot. Like, how do we then go from being, you know, like an accessory, like a Gucci bag that can be, you know, discarded or not purchased out of, you know, financial hardship, to being a necessity of, like, it would hurt their business to get rid of us. And so we had to shift into the dynamic. And then in the midst of that, you guys were already ready. You're like, yeah, we got like this product that we are rolling out that'll help bring direct ROI to your clients, and like right away. So so you speed that up, because the product that we had before had an ROI, but it took time for people to see it. And sometimes when it takes time, people then like forget the vision of it, and then they just kind of say, hey, I don't see anything directly, especially when things like when things get hard financially. And then that ended up being a huge issue. So we had to pivot, and then found a way to become like a necessity. And then that was based off, because you guys were so adaptive and so ahead of it, that by the time I had the issue and I was like, hey, I'm sure, like, they're like, cool, we got a solution. And I know, because I've been here since the beginning, that wasn't something that you guys had originally. So it's again, like, you guys are always adapting, you know, with what's going on, the consumer mind is working, and what's actually growing businesses. So that's one thing I love. It's not cookie cutter.
Let's go. Dope, dude. Thanks for the tour. Thanks for the convo. Let's go.
Let's do it, man. No, thank you,
Time
man.
to crush.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah,
for sure.
dude.
And I continue doing so. I really appreciate it.
Pumped to build out your OS more and get this show on the road.
Yeah, man.
100 6-figure months coming soon for Santi. That's
100%.
true.
Yeah. We'll do another podcast follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm down.